Where are we?
Where are we? We're
How
in.
did we get here? What do we have here?
What do we have here? Well, first of all, the first document that I have is from 1908, and it's Arthur Frederick Wright's baptismal certificate. Now, he's the firstborn child of Laura May and Matthew Frederick, and he's the one who died before he was one. But this baptismal certificate says that he was born on June the 24th, 1908, and baptised on the 2nd of August, 1908. The only thing that I saw of interest on the document is that the originals are kept at Sandgate, but it's a diocesan document, so possibly that's where the church chose to keep their documents. It's also possible that the family went to Sandgate for the christening, because I know there were family members who lived down there as well. Now, this is really, because it's a fairly old piece of paper, it's actually broken. You can see that bit that's broken there. And I do remember seeing in Grandma's possession this little folder, which was actually had a photograph in, but I never knew what was in it. Now, she hung on to that baptismal certificate all those years. Other papers may have come and gone, but the birth of her first child was never really forgotten. I'm going to put it away, because it really is a precious little document.
Indeed. Well, the capturing project begins again anew.
The capturing. Right. There's no particular order.
We're doing.
Sorry?
What we're doing now.
This is what we're doing. There's no particular order about the various documents that I've got out today, but I'll just put them out here for you to see.
Oh,
this
goodness,
I could do this one at a time, but we'll just do this one first. These are family trees written in my mother's handwriting, obviously from other information that she was given or that she knew or that she asked about. This one is headed Australia, and it takes a look at the progression of families down to my mother, Auntie Val, and her sisters Auntie Flo and Auntie Eva, starting with Keturah Small, who married William Nowlan in England. There's no date for that one, but that's how you can see and you can follow and see where the various family names came in. The other thing I'm just trying to think that's of interest on here was the number of children that Keturah Small and William Nowlan had. They had William and Richard and Ellen and Jane, and Harriet. Jane died young, apparently. Then there are the other children of William, who pops up in some other documents that I've come across. But the families are all quite large. 5 children seem to be normal. Families of 3, yeah, they're there. But it's interesting, and looking at the names, and I like the fact that there's an Ellen way back there as well. I'm a bit partial to the name Ellen, since it's the one I've got in the middle, but I was given it on account of Dad's sister, Auntie Joyce, who's actually Ellen Joyce. The other one in this set, that this is again Mum's writing, is headed England, and it shows right back from William Herbert Gilbert to Maria Jane Gilmore, and that's where that G was of interest. People had to be careful if something was just a G, that it was Gilmore or Gilbert. Now, William Gilbert and Maria Gilmore also had a wing of children. They had Arthur, who married Harriet Nowlan, and he's our great grandfather. So they had Arthur, Will, Sid, Laura, Jess, Evelyn, Bertha, and Florence, but not a lot of children from that, because Arthur married Harriet Nowlan and had children. Will married Amy, I don't know her other name, and they had some number of children as well, including Ione Garraway, who pops up now and again if you hear of Ione. and her children, Leslie and Gordon, they pop up as well. Now, William Herbert and Maria Gilmore had all those children, and I'm just trying to think. This Laura died single, Jess died single. This died single. Those oh dear, what's the word for the single ladies? Shell, I've forgotten.
Oh, good. Don't go back to that.
Flora.
We already started their sporting team.
Florence also
We can
died
just have
single.
independent people.
Bertha
I don't know,
died
we don't have to-
single. So, and Evelyn got married to somebody called Charles. Oh, Brewitt. Leslie and Alan. So there you go.
Have you read the biblical book of Matthew? It's like a genealogy of
Yes, yeah. It's a bit
so and so
exciting. Isn't it?
begat so and so,
Anyway, this
and on for about half an hour.
Yep. The William Gilbert and Maria Gilmore tree that Mum's drawn, she has right down to herself and her sisters over here, and then eventually down to the bottom to our father, Frederick George Charles. So, and us, Geoffrey, Margaret, Velma May, and Freya. So I thought that was of interest, and I've taken a photocopy of that because it's a bit hard to read. Believe it or not, it's easier to read the writing on the photocopied document rather than the original. Don't know why, but there we go.
We won't get into it because it's not the subject of this podcast, but it's interesting that that's happened.
It is, isn't it? There's something going on further or the next dot actually. These are letters that were sent from England by my Auntie Flo's Auntie Flo, so Florence Mary Gilbert, who lived in England, and they're letters pertaining to the time that Grandma Laura May's brother, Stanley, was in England. He was injured in the war and he went to England to have his operations. So I have photocopied and I've highlighted a couple of things to talk about, but you can see it's quite an activity, and I think I
would be able to see, but
I get 10 out of
unfortunately,
10.
The camera has stalled again.
Can you see that?
Nope.
Nope. What can't we see?
Now we
that?
can.
Now we can. Right. The first letter was sent on January the 28th, 1916. And it's quite a long letter, but I've highlighted some little pieces to read. And this is his Auntie Flo, who's looking after him while he's in Britain, and he's been he's in hospital having operations. Of course, you know does it need to be flat?
No.
Right.
I was just testing that we actually do have video.
Yes, it's a bit hard, but anyway, I just hold the photocopy underneath. You can see
The difference.
Yes, see, it's a little easier to read. The background goes away a bit. But anyway, she writes. I'm sure you've received letters from Stan and Laura from me. Of course, you know that is Stan, was wounded in the lower part of his abdomen, which caused a hernia, and although he had one operation on his arrival in England at Lewisham, where I went to see him, it has evidently not been successful, as he is now in an ordinary hospital in the City Road, awaiting a second operation tomorrow, January the 24th. We are feeling rather anxious about him, although he doesn't complain. He is such a stoic. There you go. And then she talks about other little things. So that's keeping the Australian family up with what's happening with the young men in the war. And anyway, here's a first world problem that actually popped up because of everything. I wish I was in London so I could have gone to Leslie's funeral, which takes place tomorrow. Only we are without a maid. Ours of 14 years standing, having left for factory work. And this is a big house for Jess to manage alone, particularly in the winter, with meals to be got regularly for Charlie and Les, the former working hard at art and musicians, and the latter at school. So as I say, even in those days, there were first world problems going on. But it was a real thing. It was a big house, that there were lots of people coming and going.
Clearly better economic opportunities elsewhere. Where was the house?
That's that lovely big house that I showed you, and the address is 7 Laurel Bank, Lancaster. Okay. Now that's the one letter. Now the other letter. That first letter was done January 28th, 1916, and the next one's dated February the 6th, 1916. So it was, fairly quickly followed up. Now this one was a little harder to read because the writing on the back showed through quite a lot. He's come through the operation most successfully and is making rapid recovery, having left Marlborough Hospital a week after the operation, and is now at Harefield. And he talks of soon going to Egypt. I don't know that he ever got to Egypt. I think he actually got sent off home afterwards. But I expect he feels perfectly fit and is anxious to be doing another stint. I think that word is stint. It's a bit hard to understand this particular lot of writing. But to the best of my knowledge, I don't think he went back to fighting. However, he's a young man. I think he was 19 or 20 over there. And this is his auntie, and he says, and she says of him, he's one of nature's gentlemen, and we are very glad to have known him. What is his opinion of us, we can't tell, but we think he likes us, especially Auntie Jess, as he sees so much of her looking like his sister Violet. So there you go. There's a family resemblance there that was noticed. Now, this was actually quite a long letter. Leslie's friend Jack Thompson had his suspicions aroused in the car one day going to Scarforth, as a foreign-looking man was making minute inquiries about the waterworks. So he put him off and reported to the police, and they followed him, but nothing has ever been proved. But he is kept under surveillance, as he doesn't seem very straightforward. Jack received a letter of thanks from the head of the police. There are lots of spies about still, and light signalling has been seen from the surrounding Day Hills, but can't be located.
Wow.
Now, this is, again, just
the atmosphere of suspicion.
Absolutely. Just talking about general day-to-day things. The price of food is very high, and the income tax has been doubled for the present and may be trebled later. But it is paying for the war, which has relieved the government, but it makes us all have to be very careful. Our income doesn't nearly go so far, and I'm afraid it often makes us seem mean. And I don't think she would have been a mean person, or it would not have been a mean household.
I think it's probably in terms of generosity, and I think many people are having the same problem today.
Exactly. Think of all the people in that Russia's
Europe.
Annoying.
Europe. That's where it is.
Just Europe, full stop, yeah. I'll put that away nicely. There's another little letter in here. I'll just put it underneath that I haven't deciphered particularly, and I didn't want to waste a piece of paper photocopying it. Would have had to have two pieces of paper. But it's from Auntie Flo's sister Jess, and it's just a little catch-up note. That lives with Flo's letter. It's a little bit more day-to-day stuff there. But Florence Mary Gilbert writes a really nice letter. She talks about the people that are in her household and what sort of things are going on in a nice chatty fashion, I think. Now, when things were starting to get interesting and people were starting to look at family trees, a gentleman called Rod Gilbert got in touch with Auntie Flo. I don't know how my Auntie Flo, and Auntie Flo sent out a message to various people in the family to help to provide some information of various sorts about the family tree. So just one by one, I'll show you these. I need 3 hands. This is the letter.
Is that the photocopy or the original?
This is the original on the table. The photocopy's in my hand. This one is a letter from my mother to Dear Flo and Abe, and it's a mixture of things Mum and Auntie Flo wrote to each other quite regularly. Mum particularly was a mad writer. She used to write all over the place. But the first paragraph, Mum's talking about Auntie Flo, and that was Auntie Flo had breast cancer, and she was going into hospital to have a mastectomy. So Mum's mentioned that. Then she's been talking about the weather, of course. Then she says, mentions Rod Gilbert, and that she's been looking in the deed box for things. And she says that in the deed box, there's also Grandma's death certificate. Now, she means her grandma, who's Harriet Nowlan, which states that under deceased children, 2 males. Incidentally, she was born at Fassifern. She was 74 when she died on the 20th of April, 1935. And my query is, where might that death certificate be? That I haven't yet gone into onto the computer to look up her death and just see who's mentioned there. The other bit that I highlighted on there, on Grandma's death certificate, Mum says, which was on issued the 3rd of May 1935, all her children are listed. So Harriet Keturah, Laura May, Jessie Eveline, Horace Stanley, Herbert Livingston, and Violet Jane. And then my question is, where were the 2 others, the 2 deceased boys? I believe one was called St. John, so it's St. John it's written, but St. John is usually how it's said. And that deserves following up. I have a feeling Freya may have some information on that. This little piece of information. Oops, sorry. I don't know who wrote it. It's not a handwriting that I recognise. It's almost indecipherable, and I don't think it adds anything to what I'm doing at the moment about families. But there could be a time for looking at it later.
Well, you've got to be quick on the pause button, viewer.
Well, there's no point in looking if there's nothing happening. Now, this particular letter is... Sorry.
Okay, the microphone's still there.
Written to Auntie Flo, and this one's been written by Mavis, so that's Mavis Ripper.
That's an awesome name.
Mm-hmm. And Mavis was written in 1981. Dear Flo and Abe, so she's responding to Auntie Flo's queries for her to send any information she knows about family. And Mavis says, I have fished around and found a little information for you. Remember, she's married into the family. Leslie Cullen Ripper, 20th of April 1899 to 19th of March 1968. So Leslie pops up on the family tree, of course. His wife is Dorothy Aileen Ripper, passed away when Alan was 3 months old. The son, John. She mentions she's got something here that looks like PAS, but I'm not sure. PA''S, but I'm not quite sure if that's actually what it is. Then she talks about mother and father.
Use the word in a sentence. What is she using?
It's not in a sentence. It's done as a heading.
PAS just in the middle of the page.
Here, there. See where my finger is?
Well, that's
means nothing to me.
PAS, grand.
She's got PAS and it's got
grandmother
mother,
and
Evelyn
grandfather.
Gilbert, father, Charles Ripper. And I think she's PAS. She might mean her father or her father-in-law.
I think.
Anyway, that deserves. It's one of those things you need to sit down, look at the family tree, and you could probably work it out.
See, in Swedish, they have special words for father's mother and father's father and mother's father and mother.
A lot of languages do. It's interesting, isn't it?
We lack the specificity.
Yeah, and Mavis says she does end up. She apologises for not having any more to offer. But there we go.
Well, we thank everyone for their contributions. All is all meaningful.
Now this is rather a longer letter.
Those filters I applied to my mic weren't a great idea after all.
This one's written to Auntie Flo again, of course, and it's signed by Gwen, who's Gwen Garraway, that would be. Mind you, a lot of these people I met when I was young. Now, I highlighted just one thing out of Gwen's letter because she talks about Auntie Flo's. She said the letters from Auntie Flo in England. I know there were a few of Auntie Flo's letters in her husband's collection, I think, and a cutting from a newspaper about the Gilbert who sculpted Eros in Piccadilly Circus, and that traced him back to Sir Humphrey Gilbert. Her intention was to give this to somebody, but she didn't. And I think that's Rod Gilbert, goes on to say that Aunt Muriel, Ione's sister, had the family traced professionally back to Sir Walter Raleigh and Sir Humphrey Gilbert. And he wonders if we have any written information on the matter. But that's the only written stuff I've ever seen, but it was one of those things that was mentioned by my grandma, by Laura May. So there you go. Beautiful little handwriting that in that letter, and fairly easy to read. Sometimes the older writing I have to concentrate hard, but that worked out well. Now, I haven't taken any more photocopies, but this letter is from the said Rodney Gilbert, who's another part of the family, really. He sent a typed letter and he sent a handwritten letter. And I think the best thing for me to do is just to leave the handwritten letter there so you can see the writing. The typed one is a different letter. And he's just telling Auntie Flo, my Auntie Flo, thanks for the information that you sent. Can you send more? The photocopy attached. And there must be a family tree in the collection somewhere. I might have it, or Freya might have it. And he was putting one together. He was a graphic designer and ran his own graphic design business. And there's his address down the bottom there. Rodney Gilbert, graphic design, 16 Bengal Crescent, Mount Waverley. With his telephone number. He's probably not there anymore. This letter was written in 1982, which means it's getting a little bit long in the tooth. He may still be. I'm actually going to see if I can find him. That's a little mission for me to do, to see if he's still around and still playing with family trees. But what he was able to access and how he was able to access it in 1982 would have been hard work, hard graft doing it, whereas nowadays we just press a few buttons and up pops information. So that's something worth following up with Rodney Gilbert, who is interested in our side of the Gilbert family as much as well as his own side, because he only learnt about our side of the family by accident. So there you go. Now, this next collection of letters, I haven't taken any photocopies because it's 13 pages, written by my mum. I'll read you the blurb. This is a collection of notes written by Valma Margaret Grace, undated, but I believe prior to 1986, as I seem to recall Mum talking with Gran and writing the narrative accordingly. Gran died in 1986. So it's obviously before that, but I don't know when. It may have been much earlier than 86 that she talked with Mum. And Mum's turned it into a story, really. And it's quite long, and I still haven't thought what to do with it. I will consult my oracles and see whether it might be worth popping it onto the internet so it can be read in full. It's a collection of little happenings, things that happened in Laura May's life when she was younger. Now, this little collection of things is documents, papers, etc., relating to the deaths and assets of Arthur Herbert Gilbert and Harriet Keturah Gilbert. Also, their marriage certificate. Right, let's see how we go. I thought I was organised. I'm pretty sure I am.
Table.
Yeah, that's all right. It's a very nice table. Okay, here's something. Certificate
Need
of
to
marriage.
get some walnut oil on it.
Arthur and yes, Arthur and Harriet's marriage certificate. There you go.
That's a copy. It says very clearly at the top,
does a
copy
copy,
of
yes.
certificate, in brackets, copy of.
Yes, but it's just, it's dated 14th of December 1883, so it's allowed to look a bit scrappy around the edges. Actually, when I got married, I was given a copy of my marriage certificate when I got married. So the original went into
Didn't you get married
courts.
in 1968?
Yeah.
Well, back in 68,
Mm.
didn't they give you like a thing to keep it in?
No, I just remember I got married in the Presbyterian church. They didn't have any money. They couldn't give you stuff.
So they
to
just
keep
made a
things
paper plane out of it and put it out in the aisle.
in. Oh dear. There's nothing. I mean, just it's a record, and it's original enough, so you know that everything on
What
it is real.
are the designs on the right called? What are those little loops and curlicues called?
I honestly don't know. They will have a
Squiggles.
name, won't they? Little squiggles.
Border squiggles.
Squiggles. Mr. Squiggles.
I think that probably deserves its own podcast.
Now, can you see all of this? Or should I do it that
It's
way?
a little bit long.
Yeah, let's do it that
but
way. This is the public curator's statement of the estate of Arthur Gilbert, which is all isolated there.
The public curator, is that an Australian institution?
Well, it will have been a hand-me-down from whatever they have in England. I don't know what they call it in England.
Yeah, I didn't think it sounded.
It's the name is slightly changed nowadays, but anyway, so the bottom it's just quite a long piece of paper, and it's all the money that had to be taken out. And the important part at the end, I think, is the gross amount.
The gross value.
Yes.
Yeah, that's just usually the important part.
And it was worth this is his estate was worth £238, 13 shillings and 1 penny.
In 1883.
No. This is Herbert Arthur's 1st of September 1948. So he popped up just before I came along.
Someone had to make room. There's a lot of popping in this family tree.
There
It's like
is.
kernels
Actually,
of corn.
there's something
everywhere.
I've
Pop,
learned
pop.
over the years, Shell. That the way the families go, it's usually one out, one in. You know. And again,
Is that so? You might want to look into that. That could be important.
Okay, this is another long piece of paper, and this is a valuation of Arthur's real estate when he died. So there's quite a bit of explanation there of where it is. It's the piece of land at I'll keep wanting to say Caboolture, but it's not Caboolture at all. Don't do silly. Cooperoo, right? So it's 2 rooms. It's an old style building. It has a fuel stove. Blah 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 blah. And in the end, with the real estate itself, the land, the fencing, improvements, and furniture, the all up total was £213.15 and 6pence.
So you might want to give people who don't know an idea of what are they doing these valuations for? What are the valuations?
He died.
And I know,
Mm.
but the other thing is for people who are not well versed in the literal lesser value of life and the down to earth value accounting of what people's lives are worth at death, this is what this is about.
I don't know what to say to sort of explain that. It's just that when somebody died, there had to be a valuation of their estate, so that right money's got. If people owed money, it could get paid. If they were owed money, it could get paid. And then there was death tax as well. We don't pay that anymore, but there was tax to be paid. And that was one of the reasons why there was a great effort to sort all these things out. His will left everything to his daughter Laura, my grandma.
Have you looked at the wonderful statement? It's not wonderful, but look at that. This little old place is only fit for a pensioner or a hermit. Yes. A poor proposition. So, these certificates and stuff and these valuations are enforced. They're not something, and these pieces of paper have been kept by people for reasons beyond just the interest. I don't know.
This piece of paper would have been kept by Laura May, his daughter, because she inherited all his stuff. So this is a formal notice of what she's inheriting. And there are two documents here, just two from the council, from the Brisbane City Council. One from 1948. Now this is a rates notice, so rates have changed a little bit. In 1948, the rates on that property were £4.12, and in 1950 it had gone up to £6, 4 shillings and 11 pence. So it had gone up, 50%.
So do you have any idea how much a pound would buy in this era? What are the consumer price index items of this era?
I'm sorry, I'm not an economist, Shell.
It doesn't do us much good if we can't relate it to something real world. I could try the internet, but the stream will probably freeze up again.
Yes, not now.
It's
not
kind
now.
of not an option. We just have
it's
to
the sort of thing that somebody could do.
Roll on.
Yeah, it's the sort of thing that somebody could do if they're really interested in the exchange in the rates. But a pound, if you were just say you were, I'll just say 48. No, I'm sorry, I can't do it in my head right now. It's too hard. Then there's a couple of other little things. A receipt from the Public Curator's Office, and I don't know what it's for. It's not telling us what it's for, but it's a receipt for £3, 5 shillings for something. Not quite sure what. The words here say debit balance as per account dated 1st of the 9th, 48. So it's related to his estate, and the public curator would have done the necessary things to look after the estate. But notice the little stamps. That would
where these?
See this little one, and in the
it just looks like a notary stamp.
Yeah, and to the rates office
stamp.
Yeah. If you're doing properties or whatever nowadays, sometimes they'll even say the word stamps might still be there, which is basically what you pay the government department for doing its job.
Are you explaining stamp duty after not explaining death rates and notices?
Stamp duty.
Okay.
And sometimes it just used to be written as stamps. Now, here's two more dockets, for want of a better word, from the Public Curator's Office, and the best I can work out is that their notice of securities. There's they're not receipts of money paid, and they're not demands for money. They're just selling you information. This is where I got the securities information from here, where it says the undimensioned securities are written. But here, and I can see that, but down here I have no idea what all those squiggles are. Don't mean anything to me. But it was obviously an important piece of paper that had to be hung on to. Now, this document is from the Public Curator, and it's noting the valuations and insurances on the property that is now inherited by Laura May. But it's to do with, see, Arthur Gilbert's name is still on there because the name didn't get changed to Laura May's just then. It's saying that these are the valuations that are on the property, which we already saw in a previous document, and he's the public curator saying that they've upped the insurance payment on it, and that may have been related.
Maybe that was the reason for the line of information saying a poor proposition. It was for financial reasons. Would have been.
Yes, but anyway, now at least it's what is there is insured. Laura May never went to live there, so
okay.
So, and you'll understand why just now, because this next document is from the Brisbane City Council, who were they're saying to Laura May, to my grandma, that we're proposing to acquisition land at Cooperoo, including the land that you now own. And they haven't got a price written on there, but basically they're saying, think about it and get back to us.
No, they're asking them to advise the price at which they would be willing to sell.
Exactly.
To the council.
The council is, as you say, acquiring the land compulsorily. And when we looked at the house when we were looking at photos previously, there was the mention there on a couple of them that block of land was where the school was built in that area. So, and I think there was a sports field and a couple of other things too when after the land was resumed.
Well, for park purposes, sounds like Brisbane City Council Park.
Yeah. When I lived in East Brisbane, I used to go down to Cooperoo occasionally, and there was a big sporting field there. So
that's probably
the
there.
School was there, and the sporting field, as I remember. This is another one of those nice long documents. I'll fold it back this way. It doesn't want to go that way very much because it's been the wrong way round. This is a memorandum of the purchase by Arthur Gilbert of that block of land we've been speaking of, which was made, he purchased it in 1923 for the exciting amount of £30. Now that's all the information there.
This is why I asked if we could get a benchmark of what you could buy for
you
pound.
Could buy a block of land
a
for
house
£30.
for 30.
£30. £30.
When is that?
1923.
Okay, so by 1949, a house suitable for a hermit or a pensioner and a poor proposition at £238. So there's been
things
a
had
lot
moved
of inflation,
hadn't they? Yeah. I'm just curious. It's just I'm assuming there would have been a building on it. Yep. So there you go. But it's very flashy looking document, really. But it's not a title. It's not a title deed, but it's acknowledgement that it's been purchased. And I'll just flick it over because on the back there's lots of writing if you're really desperate to read all sorts of things about the conditions of sale.
Oh, good grief.
Right. Dated 10th of August 1923. Conditions of the sale: 1, that the purchaser shall pay a deposit of £5. Shall pay a deposit of £5 and give the acceptances for the residue of the purchase money at the rate of £1 every 4 weeks. There you go, until he got up to his £30, obviously.
Can you show it to the camera so we can?
Yes, I'll put it there.
See?
I didn't think to write that bit down, but I realised it was important when I had a look at there. One's brain gets full when you sit down and do too much of this. Right, there's one more to go.
I use that as an excuse sometime. My brain's full.
Oh, my brain's older than yours, so it's allowed to steam up sometimes. Okay, this first piece of paper, these two are pinned together and I wasn't going to unpin them. This one's from the Commonwealth Bank.
We have 2 podcasts in one.
So it's a letter to Grandma from the Commonwealth Bank saying, and this must have been the balance that was in her dad's account, in her father's account, was 17.
Hold up, you're showing the account numbers. Stop it. This is really bad.
Hold on, it's dead. The bank's closed it.
How do you know?
£17 2 and 4pence taken from the account was closed. The passbook has been cancelled, right? And the £17 2 and 4pence has been sent to Cannon and Cripps. Now, if you know your things, Cannon and Cripps are funeral directors. So the pinned on the back of it is acknowledgement from Cannon and Cripps that they received the above £17 2 shillings and 4pence.
Oh, interesting. So when you received these documents, it was something someone parcelled it all up and it included the receipt from the funeral home. Isn't it interesting how people's minds work when they're organising data?
Yeah. Well, this could have been, it could have been posted to Grandma, or in those days you chuffed around and collected things. You used.
But it's to Harriet Gilbert. But is this a receipt?
To Laura May.
It's to Laura May regarding Harriet Gilbert.
Regarding her father, Arthur Gilbert.
But it's okay, so it's her father's. Hang on, I don't know
to do
who's
with,
getting buried or what's going on. But you've got a receipt for human remains.
No. The receipt.
Or disposal of.
The receipt is for the money that was left in the Commonwealth Bank account
to pay Cannon and Cripps,
and it went to
funeral
Cannon and
directors.
Cripps. Yes. There was other
money. What do they do with human bodies? Do they just marionette them and puppet them, have a good party?
I'm not quite sure where Arthur's grave is, but he has got one.
Cannon and Cripps, if you're listening, I'm really sorry. That's not a suggestion I would make. I'm just trying to get some information out of why do you have these? Why are these included with information about a person? Is it because of the information about where they're buried?
These two documents are completely separate. It's just that somebody has pinned them together. And
I know. That's why it really interests me. I'm like, why?
Grandma has pinned them together because they have to do with the last amount of cash that her father had.
I know. That's and then they've wound up in this set of documents for analysis, and I don't know why.
Well, sometimes people hang on to bits of paper.
There are very interesting questions in this world.
It was she knew how much, it was telling her how much money was left, and this is where it's gone. And the account's been closed.
I know the mechanics of why.
Well, when you need to bury somebody, go to Cannon and Cripps and ask. No, they're probably quite expensive nowadays. So there we go. And
do we have any more pieces of paper? I really shouldn't have gone into that. I know why we have random documents today, because it's Random Document Podcast Day.
Random Document Day. When I went to Canberra once upon a time, long time ago, I went to the War Memorial, and the only way to find out anything about people who had served in the war was they took you to a little room downstairs and presented you with microfiche, which I trawled through. It took me a couple of hours to come up with the document of Gordon Grant Gilbert. I have a photocopy of it. So, and it was all I had on paper. But nowadays you can get these things in a different fashion. There's more information about him in his file down there as well. But it's because it's a document and it has to do with the Gilberts, I'm going to leave it in there with that collection.
Okay. Well, as long as there's not more information about how much money they had in their back pocket after they got married.
This one's dead, but he didn't get any money. Oh, dear. That's it.
Oh, okay.
The document's done.
Thank you.
I have
random documents.
I have.
As confusing as that was.
I think my next episode, to make life a little bit easier, I will look at my mother and her two sisters. I have photos and a few odd bits and pieces to show there.
I think we'll keep experimenting with what we're doing, and I think I've noticed a few lighting issues today, but we'll keep working on it.
Okay.
Till next time, thank you very much. Bye.